dating guru, and no bitter ex has ever told you. Something that separates the average man from the man who leaves scars. It has nothing to do with looks, nothing to do with money, not even intelligence. It's something invisible, silent, but brutally powerful. It's the kind of power they never teach in school, yet it decides whether you are ignored or unforgettable. Think about that guy you know. He's not the most handsome, he's not the most charismatic, but there's something about him. Something that makes women cross boundaries, forgive mistakes, and become obsessed without knowing why. That something is not luck. It's not magic, it's knowledge. It's a code. And in this video, you're going to learn it. But I warn you, after this, you will never be the same. Because the real problem is, you were trained wrong. They taught you that being a good man was enough. That being available, attentive, and reliable was the key. And now you wonder, why does she choose the guy who ignores her? Why does she leave you on read, but begs someone else for attention? It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to understand. Because not understanding this is losing a war without even knowing you were in one. Desire is not born from logic. Desire is born from chaos, from tension, from unpredictability. And this is the territory of men who understand the unwritten rules of the game. Men who don't beg, men who don't seek approval, men who don't orbit around a woman, men who become their own sun. And because of that, everything starts orbiting around them. In the next few minutes, I'm going to open a door that never closes. Once you see what you're about to understand, you will never look at relationships the same way again. You'll start seeing patterns, you'll understand hidden messages, you'll anticipate their moves, and you'll gain something most men never have: strategic advantage. This video is not entertainment, it's a weapon. A guide to stop being the guy who waits and become the man who chooses. The man who isn't begged for, he's remembered. The man who doesn't plead, he provokes. Prepare yourself. Imagine for a moment that a man's value was not measured by what he says, but by how he says it. Not by what he owns, but by how he moves when he thinks nobody is watching. Because that's what really happens. Female desire does not respond to the resume you present. It responds to the invisible signals you are constantly transmitting without realizing it. And here comes an uncomfortable truth. Value is not communicated. Value is transmitted. And when you truly have it, you don't need to convince anyone. The average man tries to prove his value by talking about himself, doing favors, showing achievements, seeking validation with every move. But what he doesn't realize is that in this process, he is revealing neediness. And neediness in the attraction game is like blood in the water. It attracts sharks, but repels goddesses. Women don't simply observe you, they scan you. They read you like experts in a language you don't even know you're speaking. They detect inconsistencies. They smell fear. They sense insecurity in details you think are irrelevant. Your tone of voice, your movement speed, how long you take to reply. And from that, they form a judgment. Not logical, not conscious. And this is where the core principle of this chapter enters. The man with real value does not seek validation because he already validated himself. He lives in a reality where he is the reference point. He doesn't react. He sets the frame. He doesn't adapt. He leads. He doesn't ask if he can. He moves as if it already belongs to him. And that energy is felt. A study by the University of Columbia showed that people can perceive someone's social status within 30 seconds of observation, without a single word being spoken. How? Posture, body language, eye direction. All of it communicates value or lack, security or anxiety, leadership or submission. And the most brutal part? This judgment happens subconsciously. She doesn't know why she's not attracted to you. She just knows something feels off, something doesn't click. And that's enough to file you into the folder. Safe friend, not desired man. That's why it's so dangerous to obsess over what we say and forget how we say it. Or worse, to focus on what we offer instead of what we project. Because attraction is not built through logic. Attraction is triggered through the visceral. And the visceral realm is ruled by nonverbal language. The man who masters his body, his pace, his gaze, his presence doesn't need to talk much. Because when he enters a room, something shifts. Women don't know what it is. They just know something felt different. And that difference is what opens the door to desire. Now understand this. It's not about pretending. It's not about copying poses or memorizing lines. The imitator is always exposed. It's about building your internal structure, your center, your convictions, your standards, your boundaries. Because what you see on the outside is always a reflection of what you carry inside. And that is felt. Real value is not shouted. It's breathed. It's like a fragrance with no scent. You can't see it, but it leaves a mark. And the man who has it doesn't need to justify himself. His presence already said everything. That's why the most attractive men aren't the loudest. They aren't the ones chasing attention. They're the ones who can stay silent and still dominate the room. They don't chase because they understand something simple. The one who chases communicates lack. The one who waits calmly projects abundance. Your nonverbal language is speaking every second. What is it saying about you? That's the question you must start asking yourself. Because every time you try to force attraction, you're screaming to the world that you don't believe you're valuable enough on your own. And women hear that scream even if you never open your mouth. Value perception begins when you believe in yourself more than you believe in the validation she might give you. And it shows. In your posture, in your patience, in your ability to say no, in your ability to be alone without panicking. Because the man who needs company to feel valuable is lost. But the man who can walk alone and still move as if an invisible army follows him, that man becomes magnetic. And if you can build that perception without faking it, there won't be a woman who doesn't detect it. Because desire may not be understood, but it is felt, and women always feel it first. Most men believe desire is earned by adding things: more attention, more affection, more compliments, more gifts. They believe that if they give more, they'll receive more. But psychological reality works the opposite way. Desire doesn't add, it oscillates. Desire isn't born from abundance, it's born from absence, from the possibility of loss, from the tension between what is wanted and what is not guaranteed. That tension is the oxygen of attraction, and the most common, most lethal, most silent mistake is killing it. How? By being predictable, always available, replying instantly, accepting any plan, always giving in. In other words, eliminating uncertainty. The female mind does not desire what is safe. It desires what is valuable. And what is valuable, by definition, is not easy to obtain. It doesn't respond instantly, it doesn't bend, it doesn't give itself away without being slightly earned first. That's why the man who disappears into the phone at the first message, who cancels everything for a date, who replies with anxiety, doesn't create desire. He creates comfort, and comfort doesn't excite, it sedates. There's a concept in behavioral psychology called intermittent reinforcement. It's the principle that explains why casinos are addictive, why messages from someone who takes time to reply become obsessive. Why do people get more attached to what they can't control? Because the human brain releases more dopamine, not when it receives a reward, but when it anticipates one without knowing if it will arrive. That means desire is not linear, it's oscillating. It lives in the space between approach and withdrawal, between giving and doubt, between yes and maybe. The man who creates that emotional roller coaster is not necessarily a manipulator. He's simply someone who understands that desire is not begged for, it's provoked. She doesn't obsess over the man who is always there. She obsesses over the man who appears and disappears, the one who gives her an intense look and then gets distracted, the one who is present but not available, the one who wants her but doesn't need her. That contradiction creates a question in her mind that won't let her sleep. What does this man have that I couldn't lock down? And the moment she asks that question, you already have her. Because while she tries to figure you out, she gets more tangled. And that tangle is not confusion, it's desire. But pay attention, this is not about playing games. It's not about forced disappearing. It's not about pretending to be busy. That's cheap manipulation. And it shows. This is about having a real life. Projects, missions, priorities. When a man lives with purpose, he doesn't need to fake distance. He creates it naturally. Attraction is not in silence, it's in what the silence communicates. Are you cold, or are you focused? Are you distant, or do you simply not revolve around her? The interpretation changes completely when the structure supporting you is real. That's why the men women desire most aren't the ones sending the most messages, or giving the most likes. They're the ones busy building something bigger than a conversation. They're the ones who can ignore without hate, reply without urgency, disappear without drama. And in the female emotional world, that is dynamite. Emotional tension is the art of holding mystery without breaking connection. It's knowing when to move forward and when to pull back, when to touch and when to give space, when to speak and when to stay silent. These nuances are not learned from quotes. They're developed by living with intention, with presence, with control. Emotional control. That is what separates the desired man from the ignored man. It's not about pretending to be cold, it's about having the internal strength not to react impulsively to every stimulus. If she takes long to reply, you continue with your life. If she cancels a date, you redirect your focus. If she tests you, you smile, but you don't surrender power. Because here's the most important point. Emotional tension only works if you are not emotionally dependent on her. If you are, it turns into anxiety, fear, frustration, and that leaks. Even if you hide it, she will feel it. Because women don't listen to your words, they listen to your vibration. Tension is not absence, it's selective presence. It's the man who can be there without being invasive, who can step back without resentment, who can appear with force and disappear with elegance. That is what builds desire. And it's this emotional dance that makes her think about you when you're gone. Reread your messages. Search for your name in her notifications. And do you know what happens when you achieve that? You become a story, and stories are addictive. There is a moment in every interaction where everything seems to be going well, until something shifts. A strange comment, an unexpected silence, an emotional contradiction. She stops replying like before. She drops a provocative line. She mentions another man. She ignores you, but doesn't fully disappear. That moment is not random. It's a test. Most men fail this test without even knowing it exists. They think she's losing interest. Or worse, they think they need to try harder to win her back. What they don't understand is that this change is a silent evaluation, a calculated provocation, an emotional radar looking for something very specific, your center. Women, often without realizing it, constantly send signals to evaluate a man's emotional stability. It's not malice, it's instinct. A selection mechanism developed over thousands of years to identify men capable of handling pressure, protecting, and leading. The female test is not searching for your logic, it's searching for your energy. She wants to know, can you hold yourself when she stops holding you? Does your sense of value depend on her approval, or do you already carry it inside? Evolutionary psychologist David Buss from the University of Texas made this clear. Women have developed emotional and behavioral filters that operate beneath the surface to detect high-value men. And those filters don't ask with words, they provoke with behavior. If you respond with anxiety, with explanations, with a need to clarify, to please, to earn her validation, you lose, because what you're really saying is, your opinion matters more than my emotional center. And that message is catastrophic. Emotional dominance is not about controlling her, it's about controlling yourself. Holding your frame when the emotional ground shakes, not responding with fear, not reacting with desperation, because emotional reaction reveals your real power, or your lack of it. Imagine this. You're talking. Suddenly, she mentions an ex, or drops a line like, "So you and I are just friends, right?" The average man feels he must respond, defend, explain, clarify. But the man who understands tests doesn't enter that game. He doesn't leave his frame. He smiles, changes the topic, or simply doesn't get disturbed, and that is magnetic. Because in that moment, she senses something deep. This man is unshakable. This man doesn't need to convince me. This man has structure. Emotional structure is like a golden cage. She tries to open it. She wants to see if she can get inside and move the pieces. If she succeeds, she loses interest. If she doesn't, she stays. The fatal mistake is believing that to be liked, you must accept everything. Be overly understanding. Always agree. Show you're not a threat. That passive energy communicates only one thing: emotional dependence. And dependence doesn't create attraction, it overwhelms. Female tests can be subtle or direct. From, "I like men who," while watching your reaction, to ignoring you on purpose to see if you lose control. All of them share the same purpose: to measure your center. So how do you pass a test? With calm, with presence, with a smile that neither defends nor attacks, with a response that doesn't try to convince, with the quiet certainty of someone who doesn't need to win because he was never competing. That is emotional dominance. Not raising your voice, not forcing, not punishing, but staying firm in your energy, being able to see the game without being dragged into it. And here's a brutal truth. The more attractive a woman is, the more she will test you. Not because she's evil, but because her subconscious knows she will attract men who want to validate themselves through her. And she needs to separate the real ones from the pretenders. You choose which group you fall into. The man who melts at a glance, or the man who maintains control without losing connection. The man who tries to please, or the man who knows his energy is enough with or without approval. The man who passes tests is not cold, he's solid, not indifferent, centered, not arrogant, secure. And that difference is felt. When you can stay grounded during a test, something interesting happens. She tests you less. Why? Because her system already got the signal. She has categorized you as a man with internal structure. And when that label installs, respect is born. And where respect exists, desire grows. Emotional dominance doesn't mean being harsh. It means being stable, having convictions. Knowing your value doesn't change based on what she says or doesn't say. It's the energy of the unshakable, the man who observes without losing himself, who feels without kneeling. Attraction isn't about impressing, it's about enduring, not reacting, but containing. Because when you master yourself, it becomes impossible for anyone else to control you. And that freedom is the deepest desire many women don't even know they're searching for. In the next chapter, we go even deeper. Sexual tension, and how to create attraction without words using a principle almost all modern men have forgotten: emotional polarization. There's something almost no man understands about desire. It's not about talking more, not about impressing, not even about being liked. It's about what happens when you and her share the same space. And the air changes, not because of what you said, but because of what was felt. That feeling is called sexual attention. And it's born from an energy few men cultivate today: polarization. Sexual polarization is the sharp contrast between masculine energy and feminine energy. It happens when you don't try to adapt, don't soften yourself, don't try to be agreeable. You occupy your place as a man, without apologizing, without justifying your intensity, without denying your desire. When you neutralize yourself to be accepted, you lose your force, and without force, there is no attraction. She may like you, she may trust you, she may feel safe with you, but she will not desire you. Because desire is not born from similarity, it's born from collision, from friction, from difference. David Dida, author of The Way of the Superior Man, said it with brutal clarity. Sexual desire only ignites when there is polarity. When you express your masculinity without fear, and she can rest in her femininity without having to defend herself. But men today fear making women uncomfortable. They fear seeming intense. They fear being misunderstood. So they dim themselves. They become soft, polite, diplomatic. They turn into what they think she wants, and become exactly what she cannot desire. Polarizing is not being aggressive. It's not dominating. It's holding your masculine energy without hiding it. It's maintaining eye contact, speaking calmly but with intent, touching without asking permission, while reading the moment with surgical precision. It's being in control of yourself while creating the kind of tension that cannot be ignored. Polarization is felt in heavy silences, in the way you move closer without invading, in how you hold eye contact 1 second longer than normal, in how you speak with certainty that doesn't need volume. When you're not polarized, energy becomes neutral, and neutrality is lethal to desire, because it removes the possibility of tension. And without tension, there is no fire, no electricity, only long conversations that end in friendly hugs. The polarized man doesn't need to talk about sex. His energy already suggested it. He doesn't need to be vulgar. His presence is provocative enough. He doesn't need to touch. His body language already said what the body wants. And that form of communication activates something no logic can resist: female curiosity. A polarized woman doesn't respond from the mind. She responds from the body, from instinct, from that part of her that wakes up when she senses something deeper, darker, wilder is in play. And that response cannot be faked. It can only be triggered. Now pay attention. This is not about seeking sexual validation. It's about connecting with your sexual energy as a source of power, not as a need. When you are full, when you are not hungry, when you are not seeking to be fed, you project something radically different: choice. Repressed sexual energy becomes nervous, anxious, unstable. But channeled sexual energy becomes magnetic, because it's no longer searching, it's creating, it's emitting. And that's what attracts. The men who generate the most desire aren't the best looking, aren't the most talkative. They're the ones who hold their polarity without apologizing. They can stand in front of a woman without surrendering their energy, without dissolving, without becoming a softer version of themselves. And that tension is what she feels when she can't categorize you, when she doesn't know if you're a threat or an opportunity, when she doesn't understand why she keeps thinking about you. That attention is gold. Polarizing requires courage, because not everyone will understand you. Some will feel uncomfortable, but the woman who matters will activate, because a woman in her feminine needs a man grounded in his masculine, not to dominate her, but to invite her to surrender, not to the man, to the experience, to the energy, to the moment. When you achieve this, something deep happens. You don't need to seek intimacy, you create it. You don't need to talk about attraction, you provoke it. Your presence becomes context, becomes stimulus, becomes frame, and inside that frame, desire blooms. Here's a key almost no one teaches you. Female desire multiplies in environments where she feels free to choose, but firmly desired. That contradiction is the alchemy of polarization. The man who can hold that contradiction without breaking it, without becoming clumsy, without asking for confirmation, becomes unforgettable. Because what he offers is not a promise, it's an experience. You can master body language, you can manage tension, you can even pass tests. But if your life has no direction, if your day revolves around when she replies, if you don't have your own path, everything collapses. Structure is what sustains attraction long term. It's what makes a woman feel not only desire, but respect and admiration. And that cannot be faked, it must be built. Purpose is not a slogan. It's an internal force that organizes your time, your priorities, your emotions. It's what gets you out of bed before the alarm rings. It's what keeps you focused when the world distracts you. It's what prevents you from becoming addicted to her attention, because you're already intoxicated by a mission bigger than her. The man without purpose becomes a leaf in the wind. His energy depends on the environment. If she's good, he's good. If she pulls away, he collapses. That type of man cannot sustain desire, because he cannot sustain himself. That's why many women feel attracted at first, but later pull away without explanation, because they feel he's always available, because he has nothing better to do, because his emptiness is obvious, because he needs her too much. And whatever you need too much automatically loses value. A solid structure is not built around a woman, it's built around your vision. If she fits into it, great. If she doesn't, you keep moving. Purpose transforms your energy. It stops being reactive. It becomes magnetic, because you're no longer searching for something to complete you. You're creating from fullness, and that shows in your posture, in your pace, in how you say no. It shows in your ability to walk away without hate, in your ability to prioritize without drama. There is something deeply attractive about a man who has things more important than a date. Not because he disrespects women, but because he doesn't betray himself. That man emits a signal. I didn't come to please you. I came to fulfill a mission. If you're part of it, great. If not, I don't stop. Purpose also protects you from self-deception, because when you have no direction, it's easy to confuse validation with love, attention with connection, sex with importance. But when your path is clear, you don't need to intoxicate yourself with illusions. You see things as they are, and you choose with precision. Here's a brutal secret. Women can smell when your life is empty. Not because of what you do, but because of how you do it. If a message from her changes your mood, if being left on read breaks your focus, if her presence makes you forget yourself, you're lost. Structure gives you your power back, because it reminds you, you are the center of your life. You are the engine. You are not here to be chosen. You are here to build something no one can take away from you. A man with purpose can lose a woman and keep growing. A man without purpose loses a woman and collapses because she was his energy source, his north, his mirror. And that, even though it sounds romantic, is a perfect formula for self-sabotage. Lasting attraction is not based on what you do for her. It's based on what you do for yourself and how that impacts the world. She wants to admire you. She wants to feel that walking beside you takes her somewhere higher. She doesn't want to be your goal. She wants to be part of something bigger that you are already building. It's not about excluding her. It's about integrating her from a position of strength, not lack. And pay attention. Purpose doesn't have to be epic. You don't need to be rich or famous. It can be writing a book, training your body, starting a business, solving a problem, helping others. But it has to be yours. It has to burn inside you. It has to matter more than momentary validation. When your life has direction, everything changes. Your silences become intense. Your no's become respected. Your presence becomes desired because you're no longer chasing. You're creating. And in that process, you become the kind of man who doesn't need to seduce because his energy seduces on its own. And not only does it seduce, it selects. Because the man with purpose does not accept any female presence just to avoid being alone. He discriminates. He chooses. And that choice communicates power. Because when you choose from internal abundance, you project a value that no looks, no money, no technique can match. She can feel it. She can feel that you're not addicted to her attention. That you're not emotionally available like an anxious puppy. And that, in her subconscious, makes you different. It makes you rare. It makes you interesting. Because the man who doesn't need is the man who has the most to offer. You've reached the end, but this is not the end of a video. It's the beginning of something deeper. Because what you saw here are not tricks, not lines, not manipulation strategies. This is a call to stop being the domesticated version of yourself and start building the version that doesn't need approval to exist. Everything you learned in this video, the invisible language of value, emotional tension, internal dominance, sexual polarization, personal structure, all of it points to one direction: identity. It doesn't matter what you say if your energy screams the opposite. It doesn't matter how much you practice if deep down you still feel insufficient. And it doesn't matter how many women you attract if you're still a man who depends on them to feel valid. Transformation is not technical. It's internal, psychological, existential. And it begins the day you decide, stop orbiting other people's lives and become the gravitational center of your own. Most men today are lost because they were trained to please, not to lead, to accommodate, not to claim territory, to avoid discomfort instead of creating impact, and they pay for it. They live trapped in relationships that drain them, in dynamics where they're always the ones waiting, always adapting, always begging, but you're not that man anymore. Because if you made it this far, you can't unsee what you've seen. You can't ignore what you now understand, and that changes you. You might ask, what do I do with this? Where do I start? Start with yourself, your habits, the way you talk to yourself, your boundaries, your time. Start by stopping reaction and starting construction. No one will give you power. You must take it. No one will give you validation. You must stop needing it. No one will show you the path. You must draw it yourself. Because the men who leave marks are not the ones who repeat formulas. They're the ones who build structure in the middle of chaos. Here's the paradox. When you stop needing her, she starts looking for you. When you stop chasing, she appears. When you stop trying to please, you seduce. Because female desire does not respond to effort. It responds to energy. And the energy she cannot ignore is born from the man who chose himself. You are not the man who waits. You are the man who chooses. You are not the man who convinces. You are the man who becomes. You are not the man who chases. You are the man who chooses. And if at any moment you doubt, if at any point you feel yourself losing center, remember this. Every time you align with your purpose, your power returns. Every time you choose your vision over momentary pleasure, your structure strengthens. Every time you set boundaries, your value rises. Because the man who respects himself commands respect without speaking. And that respect is the foundation of all real attraction. Because she can play with your words, but she cannot ignore your energy. She can doubt your intentions, but she cannot deny what you carry inside. She may walk away, but she will not forget you if you marked her from a deep place. A real place, not a needy place. And you don't achieve that by being perfect. You achieve it by being solid. Strong enough not to lose yourself in her presence. Focused enough to keep moving even when she doesn't reply. Valuable enough not to beg for love. If this video clicked in your mind, what comes next is a new stage. A stage where you wake up for something bigger than a WhatsApp conversation. Where you start building your presence as a silent weapon. Where you stop looking outward and start working inward. This is the moment you stop acting like the man you want to be and become him. You won't achieve it in one day, but today can be day one. And if this content gave you clarity, if it shook you, if it made you think differently, subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this video with someone who also needs to wake up. This channel is not entertainment, it's training. It's psychological warfare for men who want more than likes. They want personal power, mental clarity, real direction. See you in the next video.